Look, Red, you got people watching live. It's amazing.
How? Where do I see that?
Oh, you actually have to pull up the I'll say this. I guess. Sorry,
I'm on your.
It'll show up in a second. Hey, everybody, this is Ramon here from the LitRPG podcast. I'm here talking with a wonderful guy. I forgot to pull up a picture thing. It's an author interview day, folks. I'm talking with the privilege talking with the author with a highly rated and well-loved LitRPG series, Desire, was his first book, if I'm not mistaken. If I can get my things to work correctly. Yeah, there it is. Desire. And the Tower of Heaven series with over 200 Amazon reviews for book 1 and over 80 in just 1 week for book 2. Welcome to the show, Cameron Milan. Am I saying that right?
Yep. No.
Oh,
no, it does. It's okay. I won't even correct you.
Oh, it's okay. Well, you can correct me on the air. It's perfectly acceptable.
It's Milan.
Milan? Okay.
Yeah.
Milan sounds so much more exotic. Like, I don't know, like you're in an Italian city.
Well, there is a city named Milan.
Well, there you go. Or I guess it could have been Mulan, but it sounds like there's a U in there. Then you sound Asian. And a little angsty about, your place in the world as a soldier versus a good daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, thank you. Welcome to the show, Matt. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
When I first started writing last year, I was like, oh, I just see your podcast every week or your shows every week. And now here I am.
Here you are. Life goal met. Check. I think. I'm just kidding. But
yes,
it's fun.
Actually.
Oh, and there's John.
Life goal, career goal.
Career goal. Yeah, there you go. It's kind of a
life
milestone.
goal. Well, Ramon, come on.
Okay, well, I'll settle for a career goal. I'm okay with being a career milestone. And Don Chapman says she can't listen in. I'm out in the UK. Have fun, and we'll catch you tomorrow. You both rock. So, Don Chapman says hello to you from our Facebook live stream, which we're actually doing at the same time. We're hoping everything is going to go okay everywhere. Folks who happen to be watching, if something goes wrong terribly, just let us know, and we'll hopefully try to fix it on the air and not break things. And if not, oh well, it is what it is. So thanks for hanging out with us, and we're going to be answering questions as we go along, but we're going to start off with just tell me about yourself, man.
I live in the Pacific Northwest. I'm just turned 24 last week, over a week ago. And I never thought I'd be a writer. And originally was going to, my dream in high school was to do robotics or something working with nanotechnology or solar panels. Those are my dreams.
Nice. Okay.
Then I, writing just kind of hit me across the head.
And it's like, hey, here's some money. Pay your bills.
Yeah, that came after.
No, I absolutely understand what you're saying. It's always interesting to see the place you are after high school and the things you think you're going to do and you want to do. And then 10 years later, you're like, or like even less, I suppose, in your saying to be 6 years from you, like, this is where I'm at. I wouldn't have thought I would have been here. I think in high school, I was like, I want to do engineering, robotics. I saw the movie Short Circuit and I was like, that's what I want to make. And it never happened. But it was always kind of interesting to see the journey to where you're at. It's never a straight line and it never goes where you want it to go. So thanks for sharing with that. So how did you start writing, if you don't mind me asking, then, if that wasn't where you were going?
So I grew up playing video games, and that led into anime, then Japanese light novels and manga. And then once I got tired of the wimpy Japanese main characters, I was like, ooh, Korean main characters. These guys are badass. And then the Chinese went a step further, and they're psychopaths. And I just loved all of that. And then I learned of Royal Road. I mean, Royal Road was a translator service only. I read Legendary Moonlight Sculptor on that. That was one of my favorite novels. And then once I saw a few years later, they totally changed their service to uploading. How do I say? Just anybody could upload a novel, and that's what I did.
Yeah, so it became a little more like Wattpad and less like web novels and other translation sites. Then okay, well, it's interesting. Yeah, that's nice. That's a very good place of like where Royal Road went, and then I don't think you mentioned how you actually started to write though. You just
Kind of was an idea in my head of like just a rough story idea, and then I eventually that idea grew stronger, and I got a notepad out one day and wrote with my hand. Very rare for me, by the way. Like 15 pages of just nonsense, like the characters or factions or what the world background is, and then like I would kind of stop, like, nah. And then a few days later, I was like, you know what? I'll just write this. And then I wrote Desire in 15 days.
Wow, that's really good. Actually, I'm like, that's not a short story, by the way. I'm like, that's a long.
Dude, that was the most happy I was at writing. It was right at the start.
Just like this free form.
Yeah.
Stream of consciousness kind of writing, like this is going to go where it's going to go. And it goes some interesting places. By the end of the book, it does not resemble the beginning at all. So it's like, wow, this is...
I know. It turned it from LitRPG into Zanzia.
Yeah, definitely. But it definitely shows the things that you like about writing and the kind of stories you enjoy, if that's what you ended up like transforming it into. Not that it wasn't an enjoyable journey. It's like, yeah, I definitely see that there. And I definitely see that in Towers of Heaven. The same kind of core concepts of like, oh yeah, I like my characters overpowered. I like cultivation. I like this not wimpy main character. And that definitely comes through in the writing, I think.
Dude, when I first started writing Towers of Heaven, I was like, this is strictly going to be LitRPG. I had that in my head. But I love cultivation so much that it just kind of just gets in there without even me knowing that.
No, I don't think it's a negative. I think it's good that you write passionately. You write what you want to read. And I think a lot of good LitRPG, I mean, honestly, the best LitRPG authors I know, the stuff I love the best, have all come from a similar idea of like, I'm not seeing what I want to read, so I'm going to write it. And it's turned out really well for a lot of them, like a lot of engineers or doctors or lawyers or Charles Dean as well. They've all wrote the things that they want to read, basically. He knows I love them. And they've kind of made a career out of it. A lot of them just like quitting their day jobs because there are other people out there on Amazon or other places who have similar taste in storytelling. And we kind of find our groups and our crowds and our readers. And so it's my journey, it's my story too. I was a janitor during the day, during the night, and a substitute during the day, and love LitRPG. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to try to write something. At that point, there wasn't a lot there. So I'm like, I'll try something. I have an idea in my head, and I wrote it. Took me like a year, published it, and people liked it. So I'm like, it's the same exact story. Probably about 3 years ago.
Okay.
So it wasn't I mean, relatively to like,
I was going to ask, like 90s? Or
yeah, no, it wasn't that long. But it still was, back then it was like a book or two a month would come out in the LitRPG section or LitRPG books. And now it's like, 15 a week. So I'm like, so it's been quite a change from then until now. I was already doing the podcast at that point. So it was more like I was reading so much. Like, I have so many good ideas and I'll try my hand at this. So that's go on.
I'm not going to say that here.
No, you ask. It's okay. This is a free forum for free thought, man.
So could you compete for the...
Oh, no. The internet has cut him out. Oh, no, folks. Or he pressed a button. Did you press a button? Oh, no. I can't hear you anymore. Oh, no. We're having connection problems. It's like, oh, my, that is so suspect. I got to say. The internet... Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Google's like, oh no, you are not asking that question after all. I don't know. I didn't do it though. I swear, guys. So while he comes back, or if we have to reconnect, you okay there, Cameron? Nope, gone again. Oh no, I think it might be the camera. You there? Nope, can't hear you. Oh, and he's gone. He just got a new camera, ladies and gentlemen. So that might be part of this issue. I'm not sure if it's just like a faulty connection somewhere. He keeps blinking in and out of this thing. I don't know. Nope, still can't hear you, and he's gone again. We might have to reconnect him. He might actually have to disconnect and then come back using the same link, and we'll see if we can pop him back in. Like a clean connection might do it. He can also switch back to his phone, I guess, and try it there. The link should work. He has a camera. He has a what's it called? A microphone on that. I've done interviews through there as well. So we'll have to wait and see what actually pops up there. But yeah, he's gone for now, folks. So I'm going to try to talk to you folks. This is what happens when we go live. These things happen. So we have 6 people watching. So 6 people who are watching live. Thank you very much for hanging out and staying with us. Cameron Milan's books. We have Desire, which is actually a slice of life, real life LitRPG story. It starts out with a couple of real life apocalypse story. It's a lot of things. It's an enjoyable story. I liked it. It gets overpowered a little bit towards the end, but it starts off really interesting in the fact that there's an RPG apocalypse on the world, and people start getting these RPG powers, and our 2 main characters get some unique gifts, and monsters show up in like the college campus and to fight them, and there's a whole like RPG, real life RPG setting there. It's actually one of the earlier real life RPG stories, and then as people start organizing, you start getting larger groups who are in conflict for certain rare resources to continue leveling and to continue like grabbing territories for their stuff. And so it's an interesting story. It actually has a book 2 and a book 3, if I'm not mistaken, on both ebooks and audiobooks. So definitely go check it out. His other series, which is going to be Towers of Heaven, is probably the more popular of the 2 series. This one's a little easier, I think, to visualize and manage, in that it's a more drop story, in that the main character, the whole world is affected by these towers that kind of pop up in the world. Oh, and he might be back. Let's see. Can I hear you?
Hello?
Yeah, there you are. He is back. I have him back. We reconnected. I'll bring him back up on the screen for you folks to see. There we go. He's back. So there he is. I was just talking about your books. Doing a little bit of vamping, but also promoting, because that's what this is about. We got to promote our stuff. Otherwise, people don't recognize it and they don't buy, and then we go poor and we have to start writing, and which is a terrible thing. So, did you want to test the universe and ask your question again? I'm okay with it. I'm a gambler, man. I'm up for any question.
In 2015,
Okay.
could compete for the title of the father of LitRPG.
I thought that's what you were going to say, man. The answer is no. I wrote, I think, no, it wasn't that far ago. It was probably 2000. It was near the tail end of, I think, 2016 that I wrote my first book. So that's what I would say, basically. Yeah, so it wasn't that long ago for me. But it was still like the Land had already come out. I know Charles Dean had written his books like months before, the Land or the Chaos Heat series came out. So there were other people who had already written stories, including a thing like G.R. Cooper and some other people who had written LitRPG stories. They weren't as popular though as the Land. So I don't think I can compete for that title. I prefer the Sage of LitRPG, or maybe the Voice of LitRPG. I think those are nicer titles for me specifically as, podcast guy. Because that's what most people think of me as. Not everybody actually realizes that I also write under the name Ari Mejia, like for Adventures on Terra. Let me see if I can point it out. Adventures on Terra, or the Project Alpha series, or even actually I wrote a sci-fi story called Planet Bound, which is like sci-fi LitRPG. It's really fun. I like it. But they don't always associate, because I don't talk about it on the show that much. And did I lose your sound? Yeah, there you go. Go ahead.
I want to be called the young hipster LitRPG author.
The young hipster specifically. I think that's a title that doesn't age well, because at some point you're not boys to men anymore and you're just old men. You know what I mean? I think
you could always be hipster.
You could always be hipster. You could always be the hipster of LitRPG. I think that is a title that will age better.
Okay, well, we'll have to do a poll on that.
Yeah, so we can create a poll. We can see if you want to call you the young hipster or just the hipster of LitRPG. So those are, I think, some very good questions. So we've talked about ourselves a little bit. Let's talk a little bit more about your books. I mean, you got your stuff that came out recently. Tower of Heaven Book 2 just came out not that long ago. So tell me give me like a little elevator pitch for Towers of Heaven. If anybody wanted to read it, how would you pitch it to them?
So for some reason, towers arrive on Earth that when you enter inside, they're their own world, and each floor has its own concept. So one concept might be you have to pick a monster to transform into and survive. for a certain amount of time, and then the next floor might be like parkour stuff, or another floor might be kingdom management. So I'm trying to hit every single genre.
I know you are. I was like, yeah, I've definitely noticed that you're spreading out the dungeon themes of each tower level. I'm like, oh, this one's kingdom management. The other one is like, I think there was a flying one and the monster one. A lot of them just have like good combat and fighting, and that's always a good default to. And just like changing the type of monsters and stuff. But there's been a nice variety. I think people have enjoyed the variety of types of dungeon level, or I should say tower levels in this case, just because it gives people a variety of things. So.
I gotten some comments from people who want more of certain floors.
Oh,
Like
what are the popular requests?
the kingdom management one.
I knew it. I knew as soon as I know there are definitely people who love kingdom management in our genre specifically. Like it's a real specific subgenre. Like I want more kingdom building. I want more town building stuff. I love civilization and that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, I get that.
My editor was like, I had things really specific in that kingdom building floor, and then my editor was like, you shouldn't specify so much because people will get into the nitty gritty. So I had to cut back a lot.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm one of those nitty gritty people who are like, yeah, I'm going to track your numbers. So if your math is wrong, I'm probably going to notice. But that's all. It's always a real balancing act, isn't it? Like too much detail can totally trip you up and like write yourself into a corner to a degree, and not enough detail won't necessarily satisfy LitRPG readers, like specifically our genre, I think.
If it was a kingdom specific book, then I would get in the nitty gritty from the start. But it's not. So I think I'm fine.
No, I think you are. I think you actually struck a real balance because, like I said, like you said, if it was an actual kingdom building book and that was all it was, yeah, you have to be more detailed because that's the entire thing. But I think the main thing with kingdom building stuff is like bonuses for the characters as like the kingdoms grow, right? That's like the big, draw for like the main character to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the bigger your kingdom, the more you can build a statue of yourself, and your kingdom worships that. And then the more worship you have, the more you can put a lot points into your stats. Or it's yeah. So I want to make it tie into a character's growth, so it's important.
No, that absolutely is important. And I think that's one of the things that I particularly like about the series is that all the different levels and bonuses your main character is getting, they have a goal. They're not just there just because he's trying to save the world. And he kind of has a foreknowledge of like, these are the things that long term are really going to benefit me, even if like short term, they don't seem like they're that great of an investment yet. And this is one of those things that shows like, oh, he has foreknowledge of like the long term play of like the kingdom building stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I always enjoy that part of it. So how is that writing about somebody who knows everything, who knows a lot about where he's going to go? Is that challenging to still make interesting?
Right. So, well, it's easy to write it, but in my opinion, because it's so easy to create like a fake scenario where he's like, oh, there's this sudden ingredient that no one knows to make a potion. It's really easy to make it. It's hard to make it hard for someone who has foreknowledge. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, absolutely. Foreknowledge is kind of this thing where it's really easy to make it, I want to say boring, but kind of, to make it boring because he knows exactly what's going to happen. And I think that was starting to creep in a little bit in book one, and I'm really glad that you cut it back a little bit in book two, and that because of the timeline shift, new events and the tower is changing in book two, so he doesn't have quite the perfect foreknowledge of exactly what's happening anymore. I really enjoyed that particular change in book two because it means, okay, his foreknowledge isn't perfect anymore. He can still be surprised now, and he can still have to change and adapt his strategies to continue to progress in the tower.
I think that's the only way to go about it.
Yeah.
To make it interesting, if it's going to be a series.
Yeah, because I think for a one-off it would probably be okay, but book one did so well. I'm like, yeah, this is going to be a series. Hopefully it's not like Moonlight Sculptor where it's like a series that's never ending.
That's so sad. It was my favorite book up until like 30 to 40. And now it's like 50 something, 50 volumes.
And you're like, oh, This is not going to end, is it? And that's one of those things that happens with those kind of stories. Like, oh, they go on forever because of kind of the business model they have, and that they get paid per chapter they publish. And so it's really, that's the motivation, is to just continue the story forever, like a never ending soap opera.
Yeah, there's this one Chinese web novel that's 4,000 plus chapters.
Ooh, what's that?
Martial God Azura.
Oh, I was hoping this would be the never ending wuxia story. That'd be a great title, wouldn't it? Totally fits in with that theme. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Bad joke. Okay. So speaking of web novels, or any Eastern stuff that you happen to enjoy that's, I don't know, inspired you?
Yeah, one I've read recently is called Reincarnation of the Strongest Sword God. And I read 1,800 chapters of it, but the pacing, okay, 1,800 chapters. What level do you think the main character would be in the VR MMORPG he's playing? Like 300 plus, maybe. Yeah. 200, maybe even 150. No, he's level 65 at 1,800 chapters in. The pacing is it's torture. So I had to drop it eventually. I was like, I can't.
No, I understand that. And sometimes that's a big draw for people that they know the story is going to continue forever. But for other people, I think maybe mostly Western audiences, like, they expect at some point for more progress to happen. I think it's just maybe it's a cultural difference. I don't know. But I absolutely get what you're saying.
There's some good mechanics in there that I liked.
Yeah, and it's actually been translated into English on Amazon. Yeah, so I'm like, some of us kind of enjoy it from Amazon too. They get the better translation. Okay, so we talked about your stories. We talked a little bit about yourself. You said Desire was the first book you wrote?
No.
No. Okay, so it wasn't the first book you wrote.
It was the first published book I made.
Okay, so what else have you written then, if I may ask?
Before that was called The Game, and it's an absolute dumpster truck of a novel. You can read it on my Patreon.
Well, there you go. That's good.
Just yesterday, last week, I added all of my drop novels to my Patreon, and I hope no one reads.
Were the supporters okay with that? They're like, "Oh, thanks for the extra material," and they're like, "How dare you sully our eyes?"
Yes. Oh God. Yeah, it was called The Game. It was a VR MMORPG, and the pacing was super fast. And it was just bad. Okay, I don't even talk about it.
Okay, well, you don't have to talk about it. I appreciate there've been plenty of books I think called The Game, so I appreciate that. My first book was Adventures in Terror, which I published. Nobody ever told me, like, you probably shouldn't publish the very first thing you write, Ramon. So I did, and that's what people liked. So I continued on from there. But it's a very interesting learning experience and getting my writing better. And I've noticed a really great improvement between the Desire book 1 and Towers of Heaven. Like, your writing is style and your pacing and your kind of decision making in your storytelling is, I have to say, much better, man. I gotta say, not that I didn't like Desire, but like compare when you look at them, I'm like, oh, this is experience. Like, showing your experience shows, I think, when Towers of Heaven.
Thanks, because on your website, Zombie Slayer is 5 out of 10.
Yeah, it is. I will not hide from that review, man. I've read that story.
I agree.
Yeah.
And Desire Volume 1 was 6 out of 10.
Yeah, and that's only because of the end, though. The beginning was really good. The end, I see that muscle twitch there from your cheek. I guess that. Yeah, it's okay. It's fine. Like I said.
I don't even remember the ending.
See, in my mind, I still have good feelings about it because of the beginning of it, though. Like, the beginning, I really liked the real life RPG stuff, and once you started to stray from that, I stopped being a little less entertained because the characters got overpowered, and they started getting a little more wuxia, like, overpowered, where it's really hard to challenge them, and so I was like, okay, I get where he's going. Again, your info, and the end just kind of lost me a little bit, and that's okay. In my brain, though, I still kind of have good feelings about it because you had such a good, interesting, strong beginning section of it, though. So, yeah, it's okay.
I mean, like you said, I think I've improved a lot over the past year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now, though, it's kind of plateaued. Like, I would have to take classes or something to figure out what some of my critical flaws are.
I think also you can also just ask like actual other, other writers to kind of critique your work and say, oh, this is where things go. Do you have an editor that you use for development editing?
I've had the same editor since the beginning, and the next series I do, I want to get a different editor, not because I don't like her, but because I want to see a different perspective.
Right. Well, I mean, there are different kind of editors where they're like, they do development editing, which will look at your actual story base and see, oh, these are things you can improve and whatever. And then they're just line editors, which will fix, English mistakes and make your words make the sense. So
it's development editing too.
Yeah, I have both, and I really appreciate what the development editor does in that he looks at the big picture and like tells me and helps me just appreciate storytelling issues or like just pacing issues or like, oh, we need more emotion here or more action here because it's too slow or too fast, et cetera, that kind of stuff. And I've learned a lot just from talking to those kind of editors too. Wait, I have some comments in chat. I've been looking at them. I forgot to click on the down button. So we have Dave Wormouth who joined us. He says, dudes. Simon Nitlin says, things are great. Simon Nassau says, make a spin-off of Kingdom Building. So there we go. Going back to the Kingdom Building stuff. Lavelle Jackson says, hi. Aaron Roland Holloway says, yo, Holmes. Dave Wilmer says, he needs worshippers. Can one buy them or rent them? Lavelle says, I look dapper. Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So all kinds of, Lavelle Jackson says he's free of charge, Dave, as a worshiper. So there you go. And we have Gibber Rathwick who joined in. So
I want the free ones.
Yeah. Oh, you don't want the free worshippers? You want the paid worshippers?
Well, they're usually a higher quality.
You get what you pay for. I think that's the saying. So there you go. So would you get worshippers if it would improve your writing? Like if you get your writing boost?
Well, you don't need good quality writing if you have worshippers.
That's true, because they're more than willing to exchange money for story. I feel like we've just described the Patreon system.
Hey, don't you talk bad about my Patreon?
No, I have Patreon. I have a Patreon for the podcast and for the writing side, and they both want different things. But at the same point, that's kind of what they do. They pay us money to continue feeding them content, like on a daily basis or monthly or weekly.
How much they pay for so little?
Yeah, well, it depends on your levels. I know there's some Patreon people who have like $5,000 or $1,000 levels. I'm like, wow, what are you getting for $1,000 a month? I'm like, okay. Or what are you willing to do? I should say to get that $1,000 a month Patreon supporter. What would you do for $1,000 for a Patreon support? I'm curious.
Me? Oh my God, I struggle to do a 25 tier.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to like justify my just try.
How much value would I have to give for 1,000? I'm not worth that much for a meet and greet.
No, I know. So I saw Michael Scott Earl was like, for $5,500 on a Kickstarter, he's like, I will fly to you and I will hang out with you for a whole weekend and do a DM thing and take you to dinner. And I'm like, somebody's probably going to buy that. Somebody bought the $1,000 level for his Kickstarter already. So I was like, somebody will probably buy the 5,500 one. I'm like, I guess I could send people racy photos of me for $1,000 a month, but then I have to take racy photos of me. And I'm like, maybe I could do a boudoir slot. I mean, muscles, maybe like a beach man thing going on. All right. Have a little bitty book, covering the naughty bits. Hey. My wife would disagree. It's okay. She might have issues with that.
Oh, bathwater.
Yeah. With just carefully, placed bubbles. There. Let's see if anybody wants to take us up on that. Aaron Rollahan says for $10,000 he would consider it. There we go. I have to pay him $10,000 and he'll consider looking at my racy photos.
Okay, let's move on. What's your first name, by the way?
My first name? Ramon.
Okay, Ramon.
Yeah, Ramon. Cameron, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we got it there.
Ramon.
There we go. You working on anything interesting at the minute?
So I'm 13 chapters into book 3 of Towers of Heaven, and I have a secret project inside.
A secret project?
I know that if I focus on my readers will get mad at me.
Oh, because it's distracting you from writing the book that they pay for?
Yeah. I'm at a point right now where Towers of Heaven is just not that interesting to me right now.
Yeah, that happens to everybody.
Working on it for 8 months straight. And so, yeah, I'm at an impasse right now. I'm still kind of considering.
We could always write a cultivation novel. Seems like you no?
I've been wanting to do a VR MMORPG novel. That's my favorite, tied with Zanzia.
Okay.
And I haven't yet. Well, I've tried a couple times, but I haven't yet because I wasn't confident. I wanted to do it right. Now I think I can do a good job.
Okay. Now tell me the difference between what's the difference between Zanzia and Wuxia?
Wuxia is like still within the bounds of human. Have you seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
Yeah.
That's 100% Wuxia. Because they can jump from treetops, they can walk on water. But Zanzia is like your fist can collapse a planet. You can create black holes. You're immortal. That's Zanzia.
So a little more like Superman or Goku.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Those are good reference points, I think, for my anime brain. So you feel like you're confident in doing a Zanzia novel?
No, MMORPG.
In set in VR though, like virtual reality MMORPG.
Not Zanzia.
Oh, okay. So not the Zanzia, just the VR MMORPG stuff.
And I hope it does not become a Zanzia.
Well, from reading your other stuff, I think it's going to eventually do. And you have readers who like it. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, is it? As long as your reader base continues to buy your stuff or to read it, I think that's the point. Isn't it? I mean, to me, that's always the big metrics of success. Like if people are willing to part with actual money to read the silly stories we write, it's like, okay, that's kind of the measure of success. You know what I mean?
Sure.
There are other measurements like reviews and Amazon reader counts and sales rankings, but I think they're all kind of default to the same thing. Yeah. So let me ask you, why did you decide to write in LitRPG specifically? What is it about the genre that you enjoyed?
100% Legendary Moonlight Sculptor influenced me. That was amazing. I love the quests in that. Like that was definitely a main character that focused on the world, not really other players until the later parts of the book. Like his quests are so cool. And I like LitRPG because the progression is rooted in gaming. So I love games. I put thousands of hours into games, probably over 10,000. So,
no, yeah. I absolutely agree. And I think that's part of the draw for the genre. And I hope that's the thing that's going to keep the genre going, despite more writers coming into it. And the fact that there's a whole generation of people who grew up as video gamers who spent their free time not hiking necessarily, but trudging through Warcraft or Skyrim instead. And those are the readers who are getting to be in their 20s and 30s and who just don't have time to game. And so they read or they listen to audiobooks. And so there's a whole marketplace that's new to people who of that same generation who can just write the stories that they've loved or imagined.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, I mean, I don't really have data, but I think since gaming is growing worldwide, I think LitRPG, I don't even think we've nearly peaked yet.
I hope not.
Have you seen the LitRPG subreddits data, subscriber data?
No. I mean, I've seen the thread. I've seen the page, but I've never seen the data you're talking about. So go on.
So you can follow a subreddit. And in 2015 through 2018, it rose from like a few hundred to 5K. But in the past 6 months alone, it went from 5K to 10K. So it's about to blow up. If that's anything to go off of, I mean, it's just one subreddit.
No, I think that's a good indicator of where the genre, how expansive it's becoming. I know there are also a lot of more traditional publishers who are interested in the genre. I've gone to a couple conventions and a couple like writer focus group conventions, and they're starting to show up more. Like I was at an audiobook convention, and Tantor Media and other big audiobook companies were there trying to court LitRPG authors. I'm like, hey, I read your thing and I know about your podcast, Ramon. And I was like, oh man, that's scary. When like actual like professional tradespeople like know my name or they know the genre people, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a little scary for the indie authors, but at the same time, I think it's challenging for traditional publishing to wrap their head around what makes this genre special. You know what I mean? Without like, because a lot of traditional authors who are artists just, they're not necessarily gamers at the same time though. And so if you don't have the gaming background, if you don't have the gaming to draw upon, I think it's harder to write in the genre.
It's like a whole language you need to know. There's so many acronyms and concepts that are unique to gaming, like kiting or farming. My editor, she's not a gamer at all. So I said in a sentence, this item is broken. And she's like, what does that mean? I mean, overpowered.
Yeah.
She's like, overpowered. Now, hang on.
So that's another word I don't recognize for in this context. Yeah. No, absolutely. I understand 100% what you're saying. I think that's kind of the edge that people who are like I said, I think we talked a little before this, but that's the thing that I think lets like just knuckleheads like me, who was never trained in writing, who I have a background in mathematics and engineering and teaching, not writing whatsoever, but I could still do something in the genre because I had the gaming background. I had the background in math and physics and word sheets and spreadsheets, to do like my own mathematics for like, gaming mechanics. And that's only because I'm also a gamer. I've gamed for my entire life basically. And so people who are amateurs have done really well in our genre because they've been lifelong gamers and they're speaking to themselves, their people, the people who are going to love this stuff.
And to be fair, or just in my opinion, that's an advantage that is not, you won't get that for much longer.
Yep. It's definitely a first comer advantage, yeah.
Because the more that LitRPG grows, the more people are going to research about it, right? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm a rambler and I can't speak very well, okay?
No, you have a point. And I see this more and more as more right to market authors come into the genre. They try to research their way into it, and I found very few to be successful so far, unless again they have the gaming background. It's trying to write about something you have no idea. You don't have an experience in, you know what I mean? If you don't have a love for gaming, if you don't have, the thousands or hundreds of thousand hours doing the thing, it comes across on the page and you very rarely are able to be successful in it. You know what I mean? It's like trying to write a cookbook and you've only, cooked boiled water, right? Yeah, you can research some of that, but it's not going to be as successful as if you've had a whole life doing the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy, dude. This is kind of off topic, but there's like billions of gamers in the world, most of them mobile gamers. But how much of that market have we tapped? Like 90% of them or more don't even know about LitRPG. And if they did, it'd be awesome.
No, I think we're actually touching bases with some. I've been to a couple conventions, like to Dragon Con, right? And more people will stop by saying, "Oh, I think I've heard about this, or I've seen an ad about this on Facebook or Twitter, and I'm a gamer. So what is this about?" And a lot of the sales pitches are about selling LitRPG in a genre first and why they should be interested in, and then going into, "Oh, this is my book." Specifically, it's a fantasy thing or sci-fi LitRPG. But a lot of it is just like an education of like the larger marketplace of all the gamers in the world who don't realize that this is something that they're going to love, because if they have any appreciation for reading and they're also gamers, that's our marketplace. Those are the people that I am. Those are the people that will, that's why I fell in love with the genre. And so there's a lot of us, and it's just reaching out to them and finding them. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm really excited for the future.
Yeah. So talking about writing a little bit, what do you think the hardest and the easiest thing for writing is for you, man?
For me?
Yeah.
I have a hard time actually sitting down. But once I get writing, then I can pump out a chapter. And another hard thing for me is an overarching plot, specific to a book instead of the series, because I write a web novel pretty much and sell it as such. And that's a problem outside of this genre, but I think readers of this genre tolerate that.
We do.
Yeah, I think that's, my editors for the past like 3 books have said, "Hey, you have really no overarching plot." And I'm like, screw it, we'll do it live.
Yeah, That's kind of what it's a pantsing kind of point of view of like, yeah, I'm just going to write a story. We'll see where it goes. And at some point when I hit 100,000 words or something, I'll pause and, you know, we'll put an ending on this thing. That's what it feels like sometimes. And the fact that you have such great success, like that you're in the top 1,000 easily. That what did you come in at for Towers of Heaven 2? Like, do you remember, like your first couple days?
When I peaked, or the first?
Yeah, when you peaked. What'd you peak at for your sales on Amazon? 37, 137. That's really good. Yeah. So I mean that
was 140.
See, and that tells you right there how much people appreciate that style of writing. Because if it wasn't appreciated, you wouldn't have those numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's also something that some authors don't realize. Like, yeah, you don't necessarily have to have a plot to write in our genre. We're used to games going for like 7 or 8 games and not really having an overarching plot for some of our stuff. We're used to downloadable content. You know what I mean? And so that's
how I'll justify it to my editor.
Yeah, justify it. That's right, editor. You listen. But yeah, and that's kind of a schism. Between traditional, I think, publishing and kind of the indie side of LitRPG, and that there are adjustments to have to be made to your thought process of what makes this a successful novel necessarily. You know what I mean? Yeah. There you go.
But I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing. Like, could it be better if I had an overarching plot? Probably.
Maybe, but that's also the learning process. Like we're not. I mean, I'm a professional author, so I'm like, I mean, I wasn't trained in writing. You know what I mean? And so just figuring things out is also part of the learning process, and that's okay because people are still buying your stuff and they're reading on Kindle Unlimited. You know, you still have that flexibility of like still learning about a process.
Yeah.
And that's okay, man.
Thank you.
Don't be hard on yourself. You're doing really well. Like you should be really proud of yourself.
Check out Zombie Slayer.
You should be really proud of the progress you've made in life and your writing.
Some people, when they make comments on Facebook, they're like, I'll check out your other books. And I'm like, hey, I read a paragraph. You should not check out these books, please. It's rough. So don't get mad at me. I'm dissuading them from buying my books.
Yeah, you're like, oh no, I'm taking enough Kindle Unlimited, so you actually have to buy it, and please don't return it. Yeah. No, I understand exactly what you're saying. Like when I go back and read Adventures in Terra, book 1, I'm like, wow, this is rougher than I remember. But when I listen to an audiobook, I think it sounds better as an audiobook sometimes than the ebook because I write in first person present tense for a couple of everything except with my latest stuff, right? And it's challenging for some readers. Like some people just won't read it at all because it's in present tense or because it's in the first person. But that's the only way I could kind of write because I see myself as the character in the moment. And now I'm transitioning to past tense at least, so that maybe more people will read it. But it's like I said, it's a learning process for everybody who's in the genre. But we still have readers because we're appealing to what they like.
Dude, I tried first person past tense and the Fabled Islands, and it was excruciating, dude. It felt so limiting because I love the third person omniscient, where the narrator knows everything, and it's just so free for me.
Oh, good. I'm glad you've found your style that works well for you.
Person, dude.
I don't mind first person. I don't need my character to know everything because then it can be a surprise when I change point of views from someone else. And it's like, oh, this is something else happening in the world as an interlude or something. And I love the detail and the feeling I can get from first person perspective.
I think, yeah, that's great because first person, you can get such a deeper connection with the character.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. And that's kind of what I like about it. And
it's hard.
Yeah. I think in some ways it is harder because you have to figure out some ways of making the story interesting or like not letting the main character know everything right away. That can be very limiting in some respects as far as like what can be played with the story. Because you have a very limited perspective, obviously, in first person. But at the same time, I love the rich details and the feelings you get from it. So there are trade-offs. And it just depends on what your writing style is and what your reader base enjoys. And you can like both. It's fine. Yeah. There we go. Okay. We've talked a little bit about writing already. I don't suppose you get writer's block, do you?
I have the opposite problem.
Do you really?
Yeah.
You have writer. What's the opposite of that? Writer
Too
mouth
many
type.
ideas.
Oh, too many ideas. Okay, there you go.
I had a problem in the mid 2018 where I was writing like 3 books at a time in different series, and it was a problem. Like I always wanted to write new ideas, and I couldn't stick with what I was
Oh,
writing.
I see. So you have the shiny, what is this, shiny ball syndrome, where it's like the latest idea is the one you want to focus on, but then you get a new idea and a new one and a new one, and you kind of it's hard to focus on the old ones.
Yeah, because the new one is so much more exciting.
Yeah. No, I get that. I felt that way before too. Um, yeah.
Just to be clear, I'm very fortunate not to have writer's block yet.
Good.
Okay. I don't want to come off as egotistical or something.
No, sometimes I really think that writer's block is an American concept or like a Western concept because I've talked to the Russian Libby authors like Vasily Mihenko and right, and they're all like, "What's writer's block?" And it's not just a translation issue; it's like the concept doesn't exist for them. Where they're like, "No, I have no problem writing. I have an outline and I just write what it says, and I write until like the story is done." And I'm like, I'm like, but it's been consistent with all the Russian authors saying the exact same thing.
Really?
Yeah, for real. Like the concept literally might not exist in Russian.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And I talked to the translator, Simon Vale, who does the translation for some of the Russian author, and he's like, "Yeah, this doesn't really exist for us. So sorry, buddy."
That's so hard to believe.
Yeah. But that's got different ways of thinking. It's also one of those things like the language you speak and the place you think really does have like sometimes different thought patterns in your brain. Like they've done like CT scans where like people who speak different languages actually have different parts of their brains highlighted when they're talking about different concepts. So I think it really maybe one of the things like, oh, that doesn't exist for them. I'm like, okay, maybe they have other issues that they're culturally specific. I know some readers have issues with some of the writings culturally, but like there may be some other things.
I had to drop D. Rust's Play to Live because what the heck happened to that?
Yeah, that happens sometimes, and sometimes it's just translation issues or different cultural concepts. And sometimes,
I can't do that. I can't bridge that cultural gap.
Sometimes I think it's one of the benefits they have, in that their culture feels exotic, or it feels like it is different, so people appreciate the fact that it's new and different and shiny to some degrees. And so I think that's always an advantage that some of the Russian translations have. But more and more Russian translations are happening because they've realized, oh, those Americans have money to spend. And I've heard some of the authors like say, oh yeah, it's much easier to make money in America if you have the money to afford the translation services. Americans are much more profitable than it is in Russia, because I guess in Russia they do a lot of piracy. So you pop up your book and the next day it's just everywhere, and people aren't willing to pay for it as much.
From the Russian books I've seen on Amazon that were in English, how successful have they been? Because I haven't seen them like blow up.
The Russian ones?
Yeah.
I'd say they're definitely.
Besides Way of the Shaman.
Yeah, Way of the Shaman is always going to be the first one, but a lot of the stories have done decently well. I mean, Level Up is always one that pops to mind that did pretty good. But it's also it's also just more expensive for them, because remember, they have to pay somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,000 sometimes to get their stuff translated, and that's like per book. But it's like really. Yeah, it's super expensive. According to like Magic, I talked to Magic Notebooks about this before on like several author interviews and stuff. So it's public information. Even Vasily Mihenko, he was like, I was working with some. It's much cheaper to get it to publish it from American into Russian than it is Russian to American. They're just, it's so cheap apparently to get it published the other way around. But like it's super expensive because not only are you translating different types of a language, they're not, they don't use the same characters. They don't necessarily use the same sentence structures. So you have to have a very intimate knowledge between both. And then once it's in English, you basically have to get it re-edited, because it's not going to sound correct. And so you have to pay for English editors to make it sound correct. And sometimes you have to change some of your cultural references so they're palatable to Americans, and some of your like geographical references. Like there are just some phrases and thoughts that Magic Notebooks, there is no translation for this concept here, so we have to rewrite this entire section, and that takes more time. So like it's a very expensive process. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Japan has that too, from Japanese into English.
Yeah.
Because they have a lot of, what's the word? Phrases that only exist in their culture.
Right. I don't have like a simple translation. Like it's like a 2-sentence translation for two words or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that happens. And if you watch anime and stuff, you'll see that kind of stuff too, where they're like, oh, like the actual translation is different than the subtitles. And you're like, I've come across that word before. That's not what it says in the other subs. So I'm like, yeah.
I want to translate into Japan. I think that'd be cool.
I wouldn't mind. And
they're like the same voracious readers as us.
Yeah, but it's again like pricing the expense. I've talked to Magic Dome Books about, and even if it's something about like translating stuff into other works, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of a gamble. And I think that's what it is for a lot of American readers. They don't want to take the writership. They don't want to take the gamble of like paying the extra expense and not really being sure if it's translated correctly if you don't already know that language. Because I know Magic Dome is also publishing in German now, and so that's a whole new marketplace for them. And the writing and the reading behaviors for Germans are different than Americans, and they're what's going to pop for their cover arts is different than Americans, and so you have to kind of reinvest in your cover art and in your writing style, and it's like it's a whole process. I'm like, oh yeah, and I was talking to Smihenko one time when I knew he's like, why don't Americans want to translate their stuff? It seemed in his brain he was like, it doesn't seem that big of a thing. And I explained to him like, no, it's a huge risk in our minds. Like we're doing well in what we do in English. And so it's a risk of investment money to like spend the money and not know if it's going to do well into these other marketplaces. So a lot of American authors are risk averse to translation sometimes.
Well, the markets are much smaller too.
Yeah.
There's so many English speakers. I mean, outside of America. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I get a lot of my stuff from Canada and from the UK and from other countries, but the English marketplace is bigger. Even though I get like pennies sometimes from India and from like Japan and from other places, I'm like, oh yeah, the majority of the money I get on a monthly basis is the English speaking countries. India does decently because they have a lot of English speakers there, but still it's not the same amount because of conversion, dollar stuff. Yeah. We have a few comments from the chat. Let's see. Everyone says, personally, I'm new to the Reddit community and website in general. Lavelle Jackson says, one day I will be interviewed by Ramon Mejia. One day I tell you. We'll have to see how the next book goes, Lavelle. He has his second book coming out, I think, in the end of October. So we'll see now. Yeah. That's what I always say to everybody. I'm like, good luck to you guys. I haven't read it, but I always wish all our new authors the best luck. And again, I always understand the authors I love the most aren't professional authors. They're guys like me who just write for passion. And I've on the whole found them to be more interesting because they understand the community because they've read, 300 or 400 books before they decided to write something. And that kind of gives them an understanding of what they like. So when they write their own story, they can incorporate that. Let's see. Aaron Roland says he's right there with Lavelle Jackson wanting an author interview at some point. I think that's why you started saying I finally been chosen for an author interview because I haven't done like a ton lately because like it's honestly it's really draining for me to do author interviews. Like socially, I'm very much an introvert. So I'm like, when I start talking to people, it's like, this is a lot of energy to expend at one time. So it's
you're very out there when you can be.
That's because I love LitRPG. Like genuinely, like I said, I've said this before public, like LitRPG and the podcast saved my life. Like they really did. I was in a dark place at one point in my life and I started podcasting and it kind of gave me a place in this community. And having these interactions with people and feeling like I had a place and an appreciation in a genre that I love kind of gave me a place. And so literally the podcast and the community saved my life. And so I'm always appreciative of that. And that it's a passion. And I think that's what comes across for the podcast that people like the most.
You read, how many books a day do you read?
I can't read as much anymore because I have a kid and he's a huge time sink. And I'm trying to write more just because that pays the bills. Like the podcasting stuff does not pay the bills. Like I end up in the red for it most years, despite the great support from podcasts, from the listeners, and from affiliate links and everything. That kind of just barely covers expenses. But I've gone from reading maybe 10 books a month, 10 books a week, to now I'm 3 to 5 maybe. But it's a good portion. I'm trying to actually find some help to get more reviews done for the podcast from community members that I trust, and hopefully that'll work out soon. And so we'll get more reviews, not necessarily from me. And so
you're almost at 1,000 reviews on Amazon.
I am, and I'm super proud. I'm like, I can say I've read more than 900 novels and reviewed them.
RPG?
Yeah. I didn't start reviewing until LitRPG. And even then, not all the reviews that are on our website are actually on Amazon, because I had to go back and enter the manual on Amazon. Because. So I actually have more than that, I think, on our actual website. So,
yeah, your website's awesome.
Yeah. I love it. It's made out of love because nothing else really existed like it. Amazon is do a great job of like letting you know about that kind of stuff. So I created it. The Vel Jackson says, I give props to Cameron for his Tower 2 cover. It's cool. I'm only 5% through the novel, though. So he likes your cover art.
Yeah, I think this is the best cover art I've had.
It is really pretty. I've actually had multiple people say the exact same thing about it. Like, that's a really pretty cover art.
And this is the first time I got a typographer, too. And it shows that as well.
And Steve Campbell says he's glad you liked it. Is Steve Campbell your artist?
He's my narrator.
Oh, okay. He's your narrator. And your editor?
My manager.
Oh, wait, you have a manager?
Well, I've done a horrible job with book covers. And so he's like, that you need to be better than this. And you need to you need to be vocal about what you don't like. And I was kind of just like reluctantly accepting all the things I didn't like. And so I was like, why don't you just manage this book cover for me? And he was talking to the artist, and he was talking to the typographer. And that's all him pretty much.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You did an audiobook of Desire, basically, and he's like, this cover art sucks. We need to do better cover art, and he took care of it all basically for you?
Well,
because I remember your original cover art for Desire was not amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when he came in and berated me.
Oh, well, good. Thank you, Steve Campbell. Like, I genuinely, I saw the difference. Like, oh, he's picking up his game because he got good cover art, and that's not cheap. And I noticed it when you got the audiobook. I didn't put it together that he did it, though. Like, he organized it.
Yeah. He's a networker, dude.
Good for you, Steve Campbell. I appreciate. Thank you, Steve Campbell. The community appreciates your extra work in making that cover art, because honestly, that does drive sales. People look at a book cover and they'll decide within seconds, is this something I'm going to give more time to read the blurb? And if they don't read the blurb, then they're never going to obviously click the buy or the Kindle Unlimited read, right? Like the cover is a big part of, like, especially if you're scrolling through like 50 titles on your Amazon page. It's like that's something that's going to catch you, right, and give you a second look.
Really satisfied with this cover art. Mm-hmm. Especially the typographer.
Yeah.
Like, that text is so cool compared to the ones I did in Photoshop.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. Yeah, like I said, it's really good stuff. So thanks, Steve. Steve Campbell asks, how do you read as many books as you do, Ramon? I neglect my child. That's how I make time. I try to listen as an audiobook or I listen to it as like text to speech while I take notes on it as I'm listening to it, or I just spend a lot of time that I should be writing to read as much as I do, because again, I love the genre. So even though I still write, I actually write full time as that's my living. I do a lot more podcasting and a lot more reading because that's where my passion is. Patrick Enta says, if you could do more podcasting and other stuff, you could get a lot of subscribers. I don't disagree. Steve Campbell says, haha, and thanks. So great comments from the chat there. Anything else you want to talk about? We've been talking for a little bit. It's been about an hour.
What? We have to go through all the questions.
I told you we probably weren't going to go through all those questions, man. I know you thought about your answers, but we've gone on some tangents here. Is there any questions you wanted to talk about, though? Like, audience, if you're watching live, ask questions. He'll answer them. Hopefully.
I remember Don Chapman was asked, dog or cat?
Okay. Are you a dog or a cat person?
I'm both, but I have two cats because they're a lot easier to take care of.
You're bipedal.
Yes. Well, I got two cats because sometimes in my life I don't think I'd be able to take the dog out.
Uh, are your cats cuddlers at least?
Yes.
Good. That's really important.
They're very affectionate.
Good. That's good. I never liked cats as much just because they weren't as cuddly as the dogs I had. Like my dog will like sit with me all day long and she'll just like cuddle in bed when it's like rainy outside. And the cats I've had have been like, nah, I don't really need you. I'm gonna go outside anyways, or I'm gonna just do my own thing somewhere else. I'm like, okay, I get that. I'm not worthy of your love.
Well, they only do it when they're in the mood.
Yeah, and that's kind of thing. Dogs are always in the mood. So like they're always up for cuddles. At least the ones I have. There you go.
Oh my gosh. Lavelle Jackson says, "When are me and Cameron collaborating on a novel?" I don't even know how that would work, dude, because I'm a discovery writer and I don't even know what I'm writing.
No,
So how can I work with someone else?
it's always a challenge for co-writing. That's one of those things I've talked to people who've co-written some things, and they're like, it's interesting. Like sometimes their methodology or the world plotters then seems to work really well, but if one of them's a pantser or one of them's a discovery writer, yeah, it's like it's really hard to do.
Don't say pantser, okay?
Oh, why not?
Because it sounds derogatory.
Why? You're writing by the seat of your pants. It's a term. It's not like I didn't make it up.
When I first saw that term, I didn't know what it meant, but I was like, oh, that's derogatory for sure.
Why? 'Cause you're writing by the seat of your pants. That's the same thing. I mean, there was a whole book about it.
Now, discovery writer, that just sounds cool.
It sounds like you're on the Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah, that's cool.
And like, I don't know, writing by the seat of your pants visually, just like, yeah, I'm just speeding down that highway, discovering where I'm going to go because I'm driving. I'm writing by the seat of my pants.
All right.
You know what I mean? The other one seems to me like you're in the science lab, you're behind a console on the Star Trek Enterprise. You're not on the bridge, so it's not ever going to be as exciting as that. You're like in the corner on the science lab. You know what I mean?
Let's move past it.
Yeah, I'm just saying. It's okay. Let's see. Publishing. Why did you go indie instead of traditional?
Because no traditional author would accept the pile of crap that was Desire. I was even declined for Towers of Heaven.
Like, did you submit these to actual publishers, like traditional publishers?
I was talking with one person, and they didn't accept it.
Oh, I'm sorry. That it seems like that kind of bummed you out.
No, it's okay.
I mean,
I really like publishing.
You're probably laughing now. You're like, my bank statement's going to laugh at you guys.
No, I don't. I really like that guy.
Oh, well, you don't have to hate him as a person. You can say, like, you missed an opportunity. Because, I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to for them.
Yeah. I really love indie publishing, because it's all under you.
Yeah.
Have all the authority. Although it's a big learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I didn't even worry about marketing until late last year. Or the social networking in the past month, I've actually started to finally be active in it. And that's my favorite part of writing, is actually the community.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want my Discord. I look at my friend's Discord. He's an author, LM Kerr, I think. Yeah, Logan Kerr. He did Reborn Apocalypse, and his Discord is 800 people. I'm like, I want that so bad. I want people to talk to all the time.
You have Discord jealousy.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I can appreciate that. I don't use Discord as much. I'm Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I don't know. I just don't like to talk to people on a daily basis as much as I would on Discord. So I'm like, yeah, I like this mode of communication where like I'm putting out a video, people can comment on it. Because again, I'm a very introverted kind of person in general. So like talking to a bunch of new people is like a little overwhelming. So I'm like, yeah, okay, this works for me though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm alone all day. My roommate works 2 jobs.
Right.
I actually had to get 2 cats because I was so lonely.
Oh,
Um, and that's helped. But I didn't expect how much I'd love talking to people online about LitRPG.
that's good. No, I'm glad. I'm genuinely happy that you have a place because that's one of the things I love about our genre is that we have such an amazing community. We have people who are fans and writers, and they all communicate and they all talk, whether it's on message boards or in Discord. I know a lot of authors who have Discords and they just love them because they can actually talk to the people who read their stuff or who appreciate the same things they do.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely understand what you're saying in that need and for communication, whether it's in text or voice. I just don't like voice personally, like on a daily basis. I talk to my wife and my little baby who doesn't speak, and that's kind of enough for me on a daily basis, I think. But if I didn't have that, I would probably do more Discord, maybe, I think.
You don't need to be on voice in Discord.
I know. But if I text, I feel weird because it's a voice thing. So I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay.
Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm too old of a man to change social media now.
Yeah, it sounds like a boomer thing.
That could be a thing. Yes, I'm definitely a baby boomer. Thank you very much. I see the smile, the low tone laugh there. There you go. Aaron Shedlock says, "Is LitRPG your main genre? Do you write outside of it at all?"
Yes, LitRPG is my main genre. I actually do want to do Zanzia only, but I don't know. That's far off. Maybe a hybrid of the two, like Desire was, but like better than Desire.
Well, Desire didn't do poorly. I mean, the audiobook sales did pretty decently once you got that going. So, I mean,
Well, I mean, I don't know how it did so well because it was kickstarted me into being a full-time author.
no, I mean, obviously it did well enough to push you in this direction. So, I mean, without Desire, you don't get Towers of Heaven. You know what I mean? And so it never.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't regret anything.
Yeah.
I just bash it.
Like I know you. If you really, I know. I understand what you're saying. Like it, we are self-critical, much worse than I think any actual critic is going to be. But at the same time, I think you appreciate its existence because it's led you here, where you are doing well. Because if otherwise, you would have unpublished it.
Yeah, I'm not ashamed or regret it at all.
No, should you be?
I say, even though it seems like I do.
No. I definitely understand that you are appreciative of the growth that you see from it.
And I actually really like the concept so much that sometimes I think about rewriting it.
Yeah, I get that too. Like, that was a really good idea. Even if the execution wasn't as perfect as maybe you see in retrospect you wanted it to be, the ideas are great. But I'm always like, nah, write something different because you're kind of retreading waters at that point. And you could be, instead of like trying to fix something that's already out there, do something new and show the improved writing on the whole. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That's what that's what I'd tell myself. Otherwise, I'd just be working on Adventures in Terror for, the next 20 years trying to make it perfect.
Yeah, I agree.
What's the saying? Perfection is the enemy of productivity.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree.
There you go. Alex Robinson, who is using the forbidden P word, he said, "I am a peaster." That sounds dirtier than actually just saying panzer. I just set up every column before I start flying to wherever my novel takes me. Maybe it'll be like, I need X here, so let's steer this no brakes train that way. So thank you, Alex, for that comment. There you go. And you said you don't do marketing, or you just started marketing. So how?
Well, okay. No. I'm sorry. Social networking. I just started.
Okay.
Recently.
What about marketing?
Okay. So, at the start, back in 2018, just before summer, I did the Amazon advertising, which is horrible.
AMS.
Yeah, it's horrible compared to Facebook, in my opinion. Here's why. Because, you ready for some numbers?
Yeah, let's go numbers. I love numbers, man.
Now, I totally understand. Let me preface this by saying I understand that I could have botched this up because I was very naive and inexperienced back then. I had $1,400 in sales, but my spent on ads was $5,000.
You spent $5,000 in ads on Amazon?
So, yeah, my return rate was negative 350% or something.
Wow, you do not like to experiment in small doses.
Well, I was like, Well, maybe it's not counting Kindle Unlimited, and I don't think they count that in the equation. They should.
I
Um,
I think they do direct sales for you, but you could also look at your Kindle Unlimited numbers for those months that you did those ads, because they solidify like a couple months down the line. So you could actually go back and check, oh, what were the results in correlation to the Kindle Unlimited numbers as well.
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but yeah, even though that's those aren't great numbers.
Yeah, I know.
So
That's why I'm doing it and switch to Facebook, and Facebook's been amazing, even though I can't see their numbers because they don't communicate with Amazon.
they don't they give you limited information on Facebook. Like they'll tell you like, oh, who clicked on the page, number of impressions, but it's hard to correlate that to direct sales in the moment. Like you can figure it out later where you're like, oh, I did this advertising campaign. I saw this sudden spike in sales on a daily basis for direct sales and also Kindle Unlimited reads for that time period when those solidify. So it's easier to figure out like the results like a month or two later, but like it's harder to do in the moment. You're right.
My Facebook ads have been much more successful. I get so many unique clicks and comments and reactions.
Yeah.
And plus, the way they do it is like you can target a 80-year-old woman in Alabama who lives in this city who has these interests. Like it's actually terrifying.
It's terrifying if you think about how much information they have on you. Yeah.
But it's good for marketing.
Absolutely is good for marketing. And I think a lot of us have figured out like, yeah, Facebook does. I think Facebook is easier to target your audience the gaming audience specifically, or like a certain niche category that you like. It's harder to target like the LitRPG specific audience necessarily. Like there's no LitRPG option on Facebook to say.
Yeah, on Facebook?
Yeah. Like to say like you type in LitRPG as a category or an interest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little harder. What was that?
Soon,
I hope. Yeah.
Soon will be a LitRPG genre on Amazon.
Yeah. You can't target LitRPG on Amazon though, where you can put it as a keyword category of like, oh, people who search for LitRPG. You just might pay a lot of money to get that keyword associated with your book. But people do it. Other people have good success on Amazon. I think they pay more, and it's worth it for them though, if they pay more and they do it correctly or they do it whatever way they're doing it. I know there are plenty of books on it.
I just started Amazon ads again yesterday.
Yeah.
So see how it goes with my new, if I've learned anything.
Well, like even without like the Amazon ads, you're doing really well. Like 10 days later, you're still in the top 1,000, and that's not insignificant. Like I look at these trends on a regular basis, on a daily or weekly basis, and what's happening with Towers Have in the book too is good. That's it. You have good numbers, man.
Why do you say top 1,000?
Because isn't it top 1,000? What do you mean?
Dude, you could say top 300.
I could say top 300. In my brain, I categorize like anything under top 1,000 is doing decently after more than a week.
I'm just giving you. I'm just pulling.
Oh, you're messing with me. You're treading on my emotional empathy. I'm like, oh no, did I say something wrong? I see. Just messing with me.
Yeah.
You seem to like to do that.
Yeah, I do that, but you're not close enough, so you don't think I'm like being mean to you or anything.
No, not yet. Believe me, I have much meaner people in my life that I still like. And they don't mean to be mean, but their words can be taken that way.
I'm a very sarcastic person when I'm with my friends, and that can come off as like abrasive to people I just met. Yeah. So I have to sometimes tone it back, but I feel like we have a good rapport.
I think so too. I think we have a good rapport as well. Like I would like to have a beer with you or a beverage of some non-alcoholic variety, since you don't like alcohol or you don't drink alcohol. Maybe a good root beer. Yeah. A non-alcoholic mixed drink.
Not with Charles. He'll turn it into alcohol.
Yeah, he doesn't necessarily do it all the time. Special occasions. He has like, he likes social lubricant. The reciprocity.
If I met him, I'd have to grow out a beard beforehand.
No, he doesn't mind the beardless folk. He just takes pity on us.
Yes, and I don't want that to happen.
It's okay. Pity can be very useful. It's a different kind of commodity. I can't tell you how many free dinners I've gotten from Charles because he's like, man, you don't have a beard. We should feed you more meat.
Is that how hair grows?
Bacon, apparently if you eat enough bacon, it activates some beard enzymes in your skin and you grow more hair.
Oh, I should tell my roommate that because he doesn't grow much facial hair.
I don't either. Like seriously, like I get some stuff here and a little bit here, and that's it. I have too much like Native American blood in my genes, so no, not a lot of hair anywhere. So.
Awkward.
Awkward. It's okay. I don't mind. Like I said, I'm a free sharer. Any other questions from chat? I think we're just about at the end then. We've hit the point where we're at questions from readers. I'll ask a question for you though. If you could go back and talk to yourself, like when you're starting your writing career, and you wanted to teach yourself like one thing that you think has been important for your success, what would that be? Ooh, tough question. I know, not on the list. Ah, yeah.
Um, Dude.
It's okay. I'll play some music while you're listening. Let's see if I got it here. Um,
What would I tell myself when I started writing?
there we go. And we're back. Okay. See, they got a nice little interlude there.
I can't do it, dude.
Oh, too much pressure. This is why you needed to prep, isn't it?
I just can't think of anything because what would I tell myself?
Yeah, or someone else. You know, somebody asked, hey, man, one piece of advice for me. I'm starting out new writing. What would your piece of advice? Because that's actually a really good question, too. Because people are going to come to you when they see your success like, hey, man, what's some advice to get into LitRPG or to be a successful writer?
My honest answer would be I'm not qualified to answer that because I think I was lucky.
Okay, I can appreciate that. Do you mind if I give advice on your behalf, just from the arc I've seen of your writing journey?
So I'll use your answer in the future.
Sure. Basically, just keep at it. I mean, from what you told me, you kind of fell into writing just because it was interesting and you didn't have high hopes for it starting out. Like you said, you scrapped your first novel entirely. But once you started on your path, you just kept going. And because you just kept going, you over time started being able to do better because you had practiced something. You know, it's like that Malcolm Gladwell thing. A certain number of hours, you keep doing the same thing, you're just gonna get better as a thing, right? And storytelling and writing is no different. As long as you have a good idea of what you enjoy and what you're doing, and you enjoy it, as long as you keep going, you're gonna get better at it. And so just keep persisting. And don't let other people stop you. Don't let yourself stop you. Just keep on going. See, works out. I mean, and I think that's genuinely part of what your success is. Like if you had given up anywhere along the path, you know, for desire 1, desire 2, desire 3, you just thought, oh, okay, this isn't working out, or maybe I'm not doing as well as I think I should be. I should stop. You wouldn't be where you are now, right? With a really good book with over 200 positive reviews on Amazon, and this one got already having 80 in like 10 days, which is like again really good. So like I think that's the good bit of advice. Keep on going.
I did not expect Towers to blow up. It was like 5 times more popular than Desire, and that was my most popular series.
And it should continue to do so. I mean, once you have fans who like your stuff, that's probably the biggest key. Like, just keep writing, so they'll keep purchasing or reading your stuff. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Like I said, keep on going. So there you go. I think we're in on that note. I think it's a very positive note. Unless anybody else has any comments or questions from the chat, all 6 people watching us live. Yeah. 6 whole viewers. No, I always appreciate when people actually watch live. It's really hard to get them to sit and watch you live for an hour. So it's much easier to get them to download your podcast so we can listen to it on their way to work. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah. I'm not interested in Cameron. I'm interested in his books.
Yeah, that's what happens. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to listen to us both talk about LitRPG. Is there any parting words you want for the audience, Cameron?
Thanks for joining in, and thanks for supporting me.
Yep, thank you. Remember, you can catch all this stuff on Amazon. I'll show up a link for all the stuff right here in the show notes, folks. Remember, he has Desire, which is his older series. Also on audiobooks for everything, I believe. Towers of Heaven, we've talked about before, and his most recent book, Towers of Heavens, book 2, with the super pretty cover that everybody really seems to like. So I'll definitely go check out his stuff. And thank you, Cameron, for hanging out on the podcast, and we'll see everybody. Bye. So you want to say goodbye to everybody? We'll end the show. There you go, folks.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Do you want to dance on the show?
No.
Oh, okay. So it'll just be me. Okay. I won't force you to dance.
Just kidding.
No one ever know if that's a true statement or not. I like to dance. It's fun. It's a nice way to end the podcast. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye. Thanks.